The Front Room, released in 2024, is a gripping psychological horror thriller directed by director's name, featuring a chilling narrative that delves into the complexities of motherhood, trauma, and the supernatural. The film stars lead actress and supporting actor as an expectant couple whose lives are turned upside down when they are forced to host a mysterious figure from the husband's past, his stepmother. As tensions rise within the household, the boundaries between reality and nightmare begin to blur, leading to a series of terrifying events that challenge their sanity, their relationship, and ultimately their survival. Clocking in at just over 90 minutes, The Front Room manages to pack a powerful emotional punch while delivering slow-burn suspense and atmospheric dread. It has been praised for its original screenplay, haunting visuals, and strong performances, particularly from the lead actress who portrays the vulnerability and strength of a woman on the brink of both motherhood and madness. This report provides a comprehensive breakdown and analysis of the film's plot, characters, themes, cinematography, sound design, and cultural impact. By dissecting each element in detail, we aim to explore how The Front Room stands out as a modern entry in the horror genre and what makes it resonate with contemporary audiences. Plot summary. Act 1. A new beginning tinged with unease. The film opens with a serene yet subtly ominous tone. We are introduced to Clara, played by lead actress, a pregnant woman in her early 30s, preparing for the arrival of her first child with her husband, Ben, played by supporting actor. The couple lives in a modest but cozy home in a quiet suburban neighborhood. Clara, who has recently left her job due to pregnancy complications, spends her days nesting, reading parenting books, and trying to manage the anxiety that often accompanies expecting mothers. One day, Ben receives a call from his estranged father, informing him that his stepmother, Mrs. Harrow, played by veteran actress, has fallen ill and needs temporary care. Due to limited options, Ben agrees to let her stay with them for a few weeks until she recovers. Clara is visibly uncomfortable with the arrangement, especially since Ben rarely speaks about his family and seems reluctant to share details about Mrs. Harrow. As Mrs. Harrow arrives, the atmosphere shifts dramatically. She is elegant, poised, and outwardly kind, but there is something unsettling about her presence. Her gaze lingers too long, her questions probe too deeply, and she seems unusually interested in Clara's pregnancy. Despite this, Clara tries to be accommodating, though she grows increasingly suspicious of the older woman's motives. Act 2. Descent into paranoia. Tension builds slowly throughout the second act. Clara begins noticing strange occurrences, doors opening on their own, faint whispers in empty rooms, and disturbing dreams involving Mrs. Harrow. At first, she attributes these incidents to stress and hormonal changes. However, things escalate when she finds personal items misplaced, including a cherished ultrasound photo. Ben dismisses her concerns, suggesting that she's imagining things or suffering from pregnancy-related fatigue. This lack of support isolates Clara further, deepening her paranoia. Mrs. Harrow, meanwhile, ingratiates herself more deeply into the household, offering unsolicited advice about childbirth and parenting, which only fuels Clara's growing resentment. Flashbacks reveal fragments of Ben's childhood, notably his strained relationship with his emotionally manipulative stepmother. These glimpses suggest that Mrs. Harrow may have had a controlling influence over Ben during his formative years and possibly even played a role in the death of his biological mother under ambiguous circumstances. As Clara becomes more withdrawn and anxious, the audience begins to question whether the disturbances are supernatural or manifestations of Clara's unraveling mental state. The line between external threat and internal fear blurs, creating a tense and claustrophobic environment. Act 3. Unraveling the truth. In the third act, Clara discovers an old diary hidden in Mrs. Harrow's belongings. The entries reveal a disturbing history. Mrs. Harrow was obsessed with Ben from a young age, referring to him as her child and expressing jealousy toward his biological mother. One passage implies that she may have poisoned Ben's mother, though no definitive proof is given. Confronted with this information, Clara confronts Ben, who initially refuses to believe her. However, after witnessing a bizarre episode where Mrs. Harrow enters Clara's room late at night and places a hand on her belly while whispering in a foreign language, Ben begins to doubt his stepmother's intentions. A confrontation ensues, during which Mrs. Harrow reveals her true motive. She believes Clara is unfit to raise Ben's child and that she must take the baby for herself. Whether this belief stems from genuine conviction, delusion, or something more sinister remains unclear. In a climactic scene, Clara locks Mrs. Harrow in a room and demands that Ben help her send her away. However, before any resolution can occur, Mrs. Harrow vanishes mysteriously, leaving behind only a cryptic note and a single red thread tied around a doorknob. Epilogue, Aftermath, and Ambiguity. The final scenes show Clara giving birth safely, with Ben by her side. However, the relief is short-lived. In the last shot, the camera pans to the newborn's crib, where a red thread identical to the one found earlier is seen wrapped around the bars. The film ends without revealing whether Mrs. Harrow was human, a ghost, or a figment of Clara's imagination. Instead, it leaves viewers with lingering unease and unanswered questions, reinforcing the central theme, the terror of the unknown, especially when it invades the sanctity of family and motherhood. Character analysis. Clara, the vulnerable protector. Clara is the emotional core of the film. Her journey from a hopeful, loving partner to a terrified mother-to-be forms the backbone of the narrative. Her vulnerability is heightened by her physical condition and the isolation imposed by both her husband's disbelief and Mrs. Harrow's manipulation. Her character embodies the archetype of the endangered maternal figure, a common trope in horror cinema. Yet, unlike many female protagonists who simply survive, Clara actively fights back, reclaiming agency through decisive action. Her arc culminates not in triumph, but in cautious resilience. Ben, the divided son and husband. Ben represents the classic figure of denial and repression. His reluctance to confront his past with Mrs. Harrow mirrors his inability to fully support Clara in the present. He oscillates between loyalty and suspicion, embodying the struggle of someone caught between love and fear. His character serves as a counterbalance to Clara's intensity, grounding the story in realism even as supernatural elements creep in. His eventual realization of Mrs. Harrow's danger marks a turning point in the narrative. Mrs. Harrow, the enigmatic antagonist. Mrs. Harrow is the most complex and chilling character in the film. Her motivations remain ambiguous, allowing multiple interpretations. Is she a vengeful spirit? A mentally ill woman obsessed with control? Or merely a symbolic representation of toxic femininity? Her calm demeanor contrasts sharply with her sinister actions, making her a truly memorable antagonist. The film never fully explains her origins or powers, which adds to her mystique and enhances the horror. Themes explored. Motherhood and fear. At its heart, The Front Room explores the fears associated with motherhood, loss of control, vulnerability, and the instinctual need to protect one's child. Clara's anxiety is portrayed not as a rational hysteria but as a legitimate response to real threats. The film also critiques societal expectations placed on pregnant women to remain composed and nurturing, contrasting that with the raw, unfiltered emotions Clara experiences. Psychological horror versus supernatural elements. The film masterfully blends psychological horror with subtle supernatural undertones. Much like classics such as Rosemary's Baby and The Babadook, The Front Room leaves room for interpretation. Is the evil real, or is it born from trauma and fear? This ambiguity heightens tension and invites deeper engagement from the viewer, who must grapple with the same uncertainty faced by the protagonist. Family secrets and repression. Another key theme is the destructive power of buried secrets. Ben's failure to confront his traumatic past with Mrs. Harrow directly impacts his relationship with Clara and puts both her and the unborn child at risk. The film suggests that unresolved familial issues can manifest in dangerous ways, echoing the psychoanalytic concept of repressed trauma resurfacing in symbolic or literal forms. Cinematography and visual style. The visual language of The Front Room plays a crucial role in building atmosphere and tension. Cinematographer Name employs muted color palettes dominated by grays and earth tones, evoking a sense of domestic normalcy that is gradually overtaken by darkness. Wide shots emphasize isolation, particularly in scenes where Clara wanders alone through the house. Tight close-ups capture her expressions with unsettling intimacy, drawing viewers into her psychological turmoil. Lighting is used effectively to manipulate mood. Flickering lights, shadowy corners, and sudden darkness all contribute to the creeping dread that permeates the film. The titular front room itself becomes a character, a space that should symbolize hospitality and openness but instead feels like a prison. Its transformation from welcoming to oppressive mirrors Clara's deteriorating mental state. Sound design and score. Composer Name delivers a minimalist yet haunting score that relies heavily on ambient sounds and dissonant strings. The music swells at key moments but often fades into silence, amplifying the tension. Sound design is equally important. The use of eerie whispers, distant footsteps, and distorted breathing creates a sense of being watched even when no one is visible. These auditory cues enhance the psychological horror and immerse the viewer in Clara's subjective experience. The strategic use of silence also plays a significant role in maintaining suspense, allowing small noises like the creak of a floorboard or the rustle of curtains to become terrifying. Symbolism and motifs. Red thread. The recurring motif of the red thread is perhaps the most potent symbol in the film. Traditionally associated with fate and connection, in The Front Room it takes on a darker connotation, representing control, obsession, and the invisible bonds that tie people together in unhealthy relationships. Its reappearance at the end of the film hints at an ongoing threat, leaving the audience questioning whether Mrs. Harrow's influence has truly been severed. Mirrors and reflections. Mirrors appear frequently throughout the film, often reflecting distorted or fragmented images. They serve as metaphors for Clara's fractured identity and perception of reality. In some scenes, reflections behave unnaturally, suggesting a supernatural presence or a breakdown in Clara's mind. Doors and thresholds. Doors symbolize transition and invasion. Each time a door opens unexpectedly, it signals a shift in power or an encroachment on Clara's personal space. The front door, in particular, becomes a focal point. Once a gateway for guests, it now represents the intrusion of danger into the domestic sphere. Critical reception and cultural impact. Upon its release in 2024, The Front Room received widespread critical acclaim. Critics praised its fresh take on the haunted house subgenre, noting its feminist undertones and emotional depth. Many highlighted the standout performance of the lead actress, comparing her portrayal to those of iconic horror heroines like Mia Farrow in Rosemary's Baby. The film was lauded for avoiding jump scares in favor of psychological buildup and atmospheric dread, appealing to fans of slow-burn horror. It performed moderately well at the box office, particularly among adult female audiences, and gained traction in streaming platforms afterward. Thematically, The Front Room sparked discussions about maternal anxiety, the male gaze in horror, and the representation of complex female antagonists. Scholars and critics alike have drawn comparisons to recent films like Hereditary, The Black Coat's Daughter, and Relic, praising its nuanced approach to intergenerational trauma. Conclusion. The Front Room is a compelling addition to the modern horror landscape, offering a psychologically rich, emotionally resonant narrative that transcends genre conventions. Through its exploration of motherhood, memory, and fear, the film taps into universal anxieties while delivering a uniquely haunting experience. Its deliberate pacing, meticulous direction, and powerful performances make it a standout work that lingers long after the credits roll. Whether interpreted as a supernatural tale or a metaphorical descent into madness, The Front Room succeeds in capturing the fragility of trust, the weight of legacy, and the primal fear of losing what matters most.